Hi and welcome back. I am Amanda, law school tutor. In the last video number 1, we discussed the differences between a law school tutor and using the learning assistant that your law school provides. In this video, we are going to talk about goals. So we are going to discuss 3 different goals that I personally think every law school student should contemplate at some point, hopefully very early in their legal journey. So even before you start applying for law schools, or maybe even before the LSAT, if you are early in the process and you haven't even done that, this is perfect for you. So if you're further in your journey, if you're actually in school, if you're maybe getting ready to graduate, not to worry, you can still catch up, but there are some goals that if you reach them early enough, you can set them, you can lay them in stone, and you can really focus your attention on actually achieving them. So the last thing you want to do is spend 3 really tough years and get to the end of it and just look back and just kind of wonder how you ended up where you ended up, and to not really know what to do now. So it happens, like some students, like, they graduate and then all of a sudden they're just standing there outside the school and they don't know where to go, which direction, what they want to do. Like, they just know that they studied and they didn't sleep for 3 solid years and they're exhausted and they have hopefully just studied for the bar, maybe just sat for the bar, and now they don't know what to do. They hadn't really thought it through that far. So I am here to help you with that. So first, to get started, the first of the 3 things that I think every potential future attorney should contemplate is what they want to get out of the law school experience. So it is 3 years. If you are a part-time student, it can be 4, sometimes 4.5 years, and you do not want to spend all of that time and then at the end say, I wish that I would have gotten involved in more clubs. Like, I wish I would have traveled. I wish I would have gone to see other schools and joined them in their experiences. And I wish I would have done internships. And I wish the wish list could go on. And you don't want to put yourself in that position. So as early as possible, you need to sit down and just really spend some good amount of time just deciding what it is. If you could have your experience be any way that you want it to be, what do you want it to be, so that you can make it happen? If you don't know what you want, it's really hard to make it happen. So with me, before I even finished my undergrad, I knew that I wanted to go to law school and that I wanted to be as involved as possible. I wanted to be the president of different clubs. Like, I didn't know what the clubs were, if that was even a thing, but if it was a thing, I knew that I wanted to do it. I knew even years ago that I wanted to run for student body president, which I did, and I was not successful. But the lady that was, she was perfect for the job. She did a great job. She is a beautiful, wonderful person, and she deserved to win. But I gave it my best shot, and that was something that was a goal of mine for several years, even before applying to different law schools. So that is something that I don't have to look back on and regret. So things like that, there are deadlines. There are deadlines to submit your application. You have to sometimes get so many students that wish to, sign your petition to run for school office. And these things, if you don't know 6 months or a year ahead of time, you're going to miss the deadline. Things like internships, usually they're a year out. So if you don't know a year in advance that you want a particular internship, you unfortunately are probably not going to even get to be considered, and that is really unfortunate. You also, some students, I see, they get really caught up in trying to be social, or maybe overly social, and then come exam time, they just panic, and they got to experience one side of it, but they haven't experienced the other side, which is being truly successful. Like, I think that every law student needs at least one 4.0 and above. Like, I know my school went, the grade goes high as 4.3. And to me, that was always something that I really strive for. Like, I knew it, like I want a 4.0 or above. So that is something where if that is the experience that you want, you need to know that ahead of time. Like, there are some students that, like, they just want to do good enough to graduate because maybe they just want to go and work in the firm that their parents own, or maybe they already were working at a firm as a paralegal, so their actual grade may not matter as much. I still never would suggest that anyone ever set themselves up to any less than their very best just because they don't think their best is demanded. It just makes you a better person. Like, it feels so amazing to be able to say to other people, like, I graduated, I got an A, or I got a 4.1 in this class. It looks great on a resume, even if you don't think you're going to need a resume. Like, you might end up in that job that you didn't think you had to try to get, and then it just may not be fulfilling for you. It may not end up being something that you're passionate about or someplace that you really want to stay long term. And then if you're forced to hand someone else, a stranger that doesn't, that isn't legally obligated to love you, you don't want the embarrassment of handing them a resume that is very sad. So please give that a little bit of forethought. So my first tip to everyone is to, as early as possible, know what kind of experience you want in that 3 years of law school. It does go by relatively fast, and I think it's just the lack of sleep. Like, all the days just run together because you're not necessarily sleeping a lot. So it really is, like, if you define a day as, normal people, it's like you go to sleep and when you wake up, it's another day. Well, we as law school students don't necessarily have that. So when they all start running together, you do not want the end of your 3 years to come and you to look back and to wish that your experience was different. So you are in control of the experience that you have. So give yourself the exact experience that you want. Okay, tip number 2, the number 2 goal thing that I think everyone should contemplate before or as early into their law school journey as possible is to decide what you want to do when you graduate. And I know a lot of people don't know, and you really shouldn't be expected to know, even though when you meet someone and you're out just, making friends and you just start a conversation with someone and they learn you're a law school student, the first thing that everyone asks is, what area of law do you want to practice? And a lot of times, no matter what you say, they won't know what that means, and they're just like, oh, that's so cool. But a lot of us don't have a lot of legal experience before going into law school, so we have no idea. Like, we might think we know what we want, but you have to have somewhere to start. Like, if you just say that you'll figure it out later, there's a good chance you're just gonna end up wherever you end up, and it's not gonna be an actual choice. And it's so much more rewarding when you make something happen, when you decide that you are going to accomplish something and you actually accomplish it. And even if it turns out that that is not your true passion and you want to later go somewhere else, you still got what you set out to get, and that is amazing. So with that, if you don't know what you want, like for me, I had a good idea what I wanted, and it's not what I want anymore. But at the time when I went into law school, I really truly wanted to either go work for the FBI as an attorney, or I wanted to go work for NASA. So my undergrad degree is in aerospace science, and I love space. Everything about space, I love it so much. However, I'm not sure that I would love working in the DC area or living in the DC area. So I'm not necessarily a big city girl. Like, I do live in one, but I prefer small. I love green and grass and rolling hills and cows and open fields, and not necessarily the city is not 100% my thing. So somewhere along the line, like, I decided, with as much as I would love to work for NASA, if they would take NASA to the middle of nowhere where it was green and I could have my daily cows, like, then I might do it. But until then, and the FBI thing, like, as I got more into law school, like, there were so many other subjects that really piqued me, and like federal law, like, I just learned that it was really not the practice that I wanted to get into. Criminal law was really not not something that I felt very, convicted to follow. So you'll learn these things about yourself, but you have to know going in so that you know what classes to take. Like if I didn't have those goals, I would have never taken those classes to be or in order to realize that that was not something that I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy studying, and if you don't enjoy studying it, you likely won't enjoy it when you get out and begin practicing, because all you're going to do for your first several years is just research. You're not going to know the laws and the regulations. Like you're going to only know that very limited little sphere that law school introduces you to, and it's such a tiny little portion of what you're actually going to be doing and learning. And you will need several years to just gain the knowledge to even be trusted to really do anything on your own. So you have to really love it. And for me, those two areas, I just found that I didn't. So those are just things that you should think about. So if you don't know what you want to do, I just brainstorming any possible area that you think you might like, and then try to take some classes to that extent. And taking those classes will introduce you to people that work in that area. So you're going to get a professor that typically works in that area, and maybe they'll bring in guest lecturers. Maybe they'll invite you to networking events with other professionals in that area. So you get to know them. You get to know the community. You get to know the people. And sometimes the people will make or break a particular area of law. So you do not want to work with a bunch of people that you just don't want to be around. And the days are so long. The days are really long. You can expect to work probably 11-hour, 12-hour days sometimes when you're your first couple of years. So knowing in advance what you want to do. And the job market is really tough. Like it took me a very long time, significantly long period of time to find a job. And sometimes you just have to take what you can find. But at least if you know what you want, at least you have a place to start. And if you just cannot find anything immediately in that area, you can try to find something as close to what you want as possible, instead of just randomly showing up and just randomly, saying like, I'll take anything and just cross my fingers and hope I like it. So crossing your fingers and wishing for the best is never something that you want to set yourself up for. So tip number 3 is going to be to ask yourself, where do you want to be in 5 years? So we've covered where do you want to be in that 3 years during law school, where do you hope to be the moment you graduate, and now we're looking further into the future. So we're asking ourselves, where do we want to be 5 years from now? So maybe you think you might want to practice criminal law, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you see yourself living somewhere in a place where criminal law isn't a big area, or it's a small town, there's not a whole lot of courts, there's not a lot of crime. Like if there's no crime, you're not going to have a whole lot of business. So if you live somewhere like Coronado here in Southern California, by where I live, there is literally no crime. So I don't know what their police officers do all day. So if you wanted to be an attorney, a criminal defense attorney privately in the city of Coronado, you wouldn't have a whole lot of business. And if you wanted to work for the government to do criminal either prosecution or defense, you would obviously still get your paycheck, but you probably wouldn't have a whole lot of fulfilling things to do. So also you might think you want to open your own business, and that takes a very substantial amount of time and energy and money. It does take money to start a law firm. And depending on your area, like real estate is super expensive where I am. So if you want to rent even just the smallest little studio, it's going to cost maybe 2 or 3 times the cost of your little studio apartment. So you need to know that so you can plan ahead. And if you know that in law school that you want to open your own business, those 3 years you're in law school, you need to be setting aside a little bit of money each month to make that happen. So you don't want to be sitting around with no work, no job, no goals, just waiting to get enough money to open your own, business. So that requires a little bit of forethought. So all of these 3 different goal areas require you to really think your goal all the way through to the end. So when we're talking about your law school experience, don't think about the first semester or the first year. Think it through all the way to year 3? What do you want to have accomplished at the end of that 3 years, all the way down the road? And just think through every single imaginable thing that you want. And if you really have 1 goal or 2 goals in 3 years, maybe you could expand that. Like, you could add more goals. Like, you want to be as accomplished as possible. So don't limit yourself. And with where you want to be the moment you graduate, again, think it all the way through. So my 2 goals, with the FBI, it required you to be in the top 20% of your class. So if you did not know that ahead of time, you didn't know that before you ever took your first midterm, your 1L year, and you don't do well, or you don't study hard enough, or you don't do well for your 1L baby bar exam, there's a good chance right there, right at the beginning, the end of your first semester, that you're going to not be able to set yourself up to get in that top 20%. So it takes effort right from the very beginning. So the last thing you want to do is be in your final semester where it's way too late to do anything about this, and realize that you're not anywhere near the top 20%, and in 1 semester there is no way that you could bring your GPA up enough to get up that high. So things you need to know in advance. Also with NASA, they have their own specific requirements, and you have to take a certain number of, classes or of things that they like. Like, they really like trademark and patents and stuff, and they want you to have so much experience. They want you to do internships in that arena, even though that necessarily doesn't have anything to do with space. A lot of what NASA does is they produce technological things that they want to trademark and patent. So that's an area that law school students do generally have an option to explore. So if you do not do that, when you graduate and you're like, oh, it would be amazing to work for NASA. Like, I want to go work in DC. Like, I want, to wear a fancy suit and live in the big city. And that is not going to happen if you don't set yourself up right from the beginning and think that goal through all the way to the very, very end. So that wraps up our discussion on goals. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Again, my name is Amanda. If you got value out of this video, please like my number 2 video, and you can head back and check out video number 1. Video number 3 will follow, and it is going to talk about how not to self-sabotage yourself. So once you've decided what your goals are, we're going to talk about different ways you can stop even accidentally doing things that are going to get you off the path to reaching your goal. So thank you so much, and please join me next time. You can reach me on my website at lawschooltutoramanda.com, and all of my contact information is there. And of course, if you are looking for a law school tutor, I am available. I am in person in the San Diego area, or we can do video tutoring sessions, which they work really great for the majority of people. So I would love to have you as a student. Just give me a call or send me an email anytime, and I will talk to you soon.